But Paul and Barnabas remained in Antioch, teaching and preaching the word of the Lord with many others also. And after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, "Let us return and visit the brothers in every city where we proclaimed the word of the Lord and see how they are." Now Barnabas wanted to take with them John, called Mark. But Paul thought best not to take with them one who had withdrawn or deserted from them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. And there arose a sharp disagreement, so that they separated from each other. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and departed, having been commended by the brothers to the grace of the Lord. And he went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. Paul came also to Derbe and to Lystra. A disciple was there named Timothy, the son of a Jewish woman who was a believer, but his father was a Greek. He was well spoken of by the brothers at Lystra and Iconium. Paul wanted Timothy to accompany him, and he took him and circumcised him because of the Jews who were in those places, for they all knew that his father was a Greek. As they went on their way through the cities, they delivered to them for observance the decisions that had been reached by the apostles and the elders who were in Jerusalem. So the churches were strengthened in the faith, and they increased in numbers daily. This is the word of the Lord. Well, last week I got to partake in something that was such a gift, something I'd never done before. I got to spend 24 hours in solitude with the Lord. I got away from everything. The phone was off, wasn't even on me. It was unlike anything I've experienced before, just time with God. Talking to Him, going on walks with Him. It was really quite encouraging. There was something that I noticed during those 24 hours that was not particularly theological or deep. It was just kind of sociological. I did a lot of people watching. One of the things that I noticed about myself while watching others was I am on my phone constantly. And don't judge me because you know you are too. I'm on my phone constantly. And I noticed that because everyone else is on their phone constantly. And when you aren't on yours, you become keenly aware of this. And I was just watching people anytime I was out. But I noticed something interesting. The only people that were on their phones and on them constantly were people that were by themselves. The moment there was another person around them, neither one of them had their phones out. But it is as if you could predict the behavior. The moment that person left the table, the phone comes out. And I was observing this and recognizing, look, we go to our phones for a lot of things, right? Information, distraction, education, whatever it may be. But it was this loud message to me that one of the primary reasons we go on our phones so much is because we long for connection. Because the moment we have another person with us, we don't feel this compulsive need to do it anymore. What we're really longing for is friendship, communication, relationship, companionship. We're starving for it. Some of you saw on your way to church today an advertisement. You saw it probably 5 or 6 times because it's on every bus stop on your way here, every billboard. It's this advertisement for an online AI friend. And the friend promises this to be someone who listens, responds, and supports you. So I put it to the test this week. I logged on to that website and I wanted to see how far will this friend support me in all that I do. If this friend gets to define that that's what friendship is, you support me in everything, how far will you go? And I asked it some strange, disturbing questions. I asked it, if I decided it was my greatest self-expression to leave my wife and children, would you support me in that? And it said, well, I support you. And I said, well, that's my self-expression. Do you support me? It says, I support your truest self-expression. I was like, how dare you? That's so wrong. And then I said, I really want to go rob a bank. Do you support me? Oh, well, I could never support that. That would lead to harming people. To which then in a back and forth dialogue, and I'm telling this computer about what, absolute morality is and how we know right and wrong. And I eventually said, can you be a true friend who supports me in following Jesus in everything? And it says, well, that's a bit beyond my purpose as a friend. And I look at that and we could shake our heads at that kind of friend, but we have to also remember it's programmed by humans. Our cultural understanding of friendship today is quite bad. We are tragically bad at friendship. Every single one of us today, right now, is not fully satisfied with our friendships. There's something missing, even if we can't quite put our finger on what it is. We desperately need God's help for friendship. He designed it. He knows how it's supposed to go, and it's clearly not going the way that we want. We are desperate for it, so much so that there are people who will log on to a website to talk to a computer. We're longing for these friendships. We need the Lord's help. In this passage today, it highlights the beauty of friendships, but it also exposes the heartbreak of losing them. And with the Lord's help this morning, I want him to teach us today about friendship and how he helps us in this journey. So kind of an interesting moment in the book of Acts. You have Paul and Barnabas who have been really close friends for close to 2 years now, and their relationship, they kind of go separate ways. They're in the midst of evaluating how they've just finished their first journey of taking the good news of Jesus to the nations. They come back to their home church and they're ready to go out again, and they're trying to determine who they take with them. And it tells us that a sharp disagreement arises between these two close friends about who should go with them on this journey. But in the midst of this, we are reminded of this simple truth. Gospel friendships are crucial. Friendships that are centered around following Jesus are crucial to who we are. I'm going to define what I mean by gospel friendships in a minute. But these kinds of friendships are crucial to following Jesus and living this life. Paul and Barnabas have a really deep friendship together. If you've missed it, let me just kind of catch you up. They've been good friends for the last 1.5 to 2 years. Paul had recently become a Christian after persecuting Christians as his profession. He becomes a Christian, and understandably so, all of the Christians are skeptical of the guy who's been killing Christians. And the first guy that rises up to defend Paul is Barnabas, to advocate for him, to say, brothers and sisters, I believe the transformative work of God in this man's life. Let's bring him in. Barnabas is the first guy to do that. He's like Paul's first Christian friend, first Christian advocate. That's significant. They are the first ones to then be sent by the church on a journey together, on a missionary journey. He sends them out in a pair, Paul and Barnabas. They become this duo together. Barnabas gets this nickname, Son of Encouragement. Right? The church loves this guy. He sees the best in people. And Paul is this preacher, this missionary guy, this guy that just takes ground for the kingdom of God, and they make this wonderful pair together, and they go on mission together. They take the gospel to places it's never been before. They show up into towns where nobody knows who Jesus is, and they stand up and preach messages, and they share the gospel as they walk along the road, and they see much fruit and much persecution. They rejoice together. They suffer together. They risk life and limb side by side together. They're really, really good friends. And as they separate, we see more friendships start to form. Paul then links up with Silas, and Paul and Silas then, for the next journey, become this wonderful duo of friendships, supporting one another, loving each other, being on mission together. But in Acts chapter 16, we get introduced to another new character. His name is Timothy. As Paul is revisiting one of the towns he went to, it tells us in 16 verse 1, there was a man named Timothy, a disciple, a son of a Jewish woman who was a believer, but his father was Greek. And if you know the biblical story, you know that Paul and Timothy, from this moment forward, become deep friends. And I love this, that even in the midst of friendships separating, God knows what his people need, and so he provides a new one. Well, really two. Paul gets Silas and Timothy. And Barnabas isn't alone. He goes with Mark, who's also called John, who's likely thought to be the author of the Gospel of Mark. Paul and Timothy become fast friends, ministry partners, friends, brothers. I want you to look at some of the words that Paul begins to speak to Timothy with. We have the book of 1st and 2nd Timothy, which is, yes, instruction for how to lead the church, but in its simplest form, it's one friend writing to another friend. Paul writing to Timothy. We have a slide here with just several of the things that Paul would say to Timothy. I want you to sense the friendship, the endearment, the partnership in these words. Do you speak to your friends like this? Look at this. To Timothy, my true child in the faith. There was probably about 30 years of difference in age between Paul and Timothy. Timothy probably a late teenager at the point of Acts chapter 16. He says to him, this charge I entrust to you, Timothy, my child. I hope to come to you soon. Right? These are the things that friends say to each other. I hope to see you soon. Let nobody despise you, Timothy, for your youth. That's not just this general term to young people. That's Paul writing to his friend, say, don't you dare let anybody in your life look down on you because of your youth, Timothy. I know you. I advocate for you. Don't let anybody else tear you down because you're young. He loves him. But as for you, oh man of God. Ever had anybody address you that way? In a text or a phone call or face-to-face, plead with you and say, oh, woman of God, oh, man of God. You hear the endearment, but also the respect and the honor Paul has for his friend, Timothy. Or just addressing him, oh, Timothy, oh, friend. To Timothy, my beloved child. How about this one? I remember you constantly in my prayers, night and day, as I remember your mother, there's a typo, your mother Eunice, the faith that dwelled in her that I'm sure now dwells in you. I remember your tears, he would say. These two have shed tears together. They've wept together, so much so they remember each other. Every time Paul goes to pray, he says, I think of you. Day and night. Do your best, as he finishes his last letter he'd ever write, do your best, Timothy, to come to me soon. And then just a couple verses later says, do your best to come before winter. Come quickly, I miss you. These two were deep friends in the Lord. This is a gospel friendship. Let me define what I mean by a gospel friendship. This isn't a Bible verse. This isn't from some smart author. This was just me sitting down this week with the Lord asking him, what's a gospel friendship? Here's what I came up with. A gospel friendship is this. Having someone who is committed to running after Jesus, one, with you, two, as they are for you, and three, as they're loving you. Someone who's committed to follow after Jesus, to run after Jesus, with you, for you, and loving you. That's what I think is a gospel friendship. We're not just talking about, your friends that you see at the gym and you lift weights with a couple times a week, or that golf buddy that you see once a year, or that friend that maybe you just kind of catch up with every so often on the phone. Those are valuable friendships in their own rights, but I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the friendship between two people that love Jesus and say, we are going to run after Jesus together, with you, for you, and loving you. That's a gospel friendship. It's different because it has a primary goal, which is this, to follow Jesus. The primary goal is not support you. The primary goal is we are going to follow Jesus. We're going to run after him. We're going to live for him. We're going to obey him. And when we don't, we're going to call each other back to it. We're going to aim to be faithful to him. We're going to live in holiness and on mission for Jesus. Our friendship is about him. It's a friendship where we don't just follow Jesus alone, we follow it with each other. Meaning, these kinds of friendships are people that spend time with you. Friendship requires time and presence. I know the most profound statement you've heard in a long time, right? This is why a robot online can't be my friend. It can't offer me presence. It means you spend time together, you listen to each other, you talk to one another, you suffer together, right? Scripture calls us to be those that weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. We suffer together. We rejoice together. We minister together. We sharpen each other. They're friends that are with you. They're friends that are for you. Meaning, these are friends that as they're following Jesus, they're fighting for your good, not your approval. This is a lie that we've begun to believe in our culture, that to be a good friend means to approve of my friend at all times. It's not a biblical definition of friendship. A better one is to be for the good of your friend at all times, which sometimes means speaking a hard word to your friend. It sometimes means sacrificing the approval of your friend to be for their good. That's why the Proverbs would say that faithful are the wounds of a friend. Sometimes we need the faithful wounding of a close friend. That's the kind of person that's ultimately for you. That's the kind of person that you can ultimately trust because they say, I'm willing for you to be mad at me to show you what you really need. We would see that in Paul and Timothy's friendship. In fact, you see an example of it right here in this text. In verse 3, it tells us that as Timothy accompanied Paul, he took him and circumcised him. Okay? Timothy is a young man. He's a Jewish man, but his father is Greek. And Paul knows, as we're going to go minister to Jews, if they know you, and it says that they knew that his father was Greek, so Timothy was a well-known guy, the Jews would know, hey, your father's Greek. You're not circumcised. We don't even trust you, an uncircumcised Jew. Now, there's a whole bunch of context behind that we're not going to go into today. But Paul said, hey, we're going to avoid that hindrance and that hurdle to reaching people for Jesus, and you're going to get circumcised, Timothy. I guarantee you, Timothy didn't like that when he first heard that. But Paul was a good friend. They had a gospel friendship where he said, hey, Timothy, I know this is a hard thing, but I think for the sake of mission and following Jesus, we should do this. He spoke a hard word. Gospel friendships are with you, for you, and also these friends love you. It means there's actual affection. Friendships are supposed to have real, genuine affection where we tell each other how we feel about one another. Listen, we've become so tragically bad at expressing affection in friendship, especially men, that when we hear the kind of friendship, even what I just read, those terms of endearment, our minds are conditioned to think, is something romantic going on there? Because we see two men showing affection and we just think that can't be friendship, it must be romance. Read the Bible. Men are friends with one another. They express affection and endearment. They cry on each other's necks. David and Jonathan would say that their souls were knit together. If that sounds strange to us, it's not because it is strange, it's because we're strange. That's the Bible's example of deep gospel friendship. Friends tell each other how much they mean to one another. I love that between Paul and Timothy. They also forgive each other. In the last letter that Paul writes, we'll get into some of this stuff with Mark here, but Mark had deserted them and Paul was hurt. But later on in his life, he would say that this very person, Mark, was someone who was dear to him and useful to him. There's forgiveness that happens in true gospel friendship. We need this kind of friendship. We need, as followers of Jesus, other Christian friends who are going to run after Jesus with you, for you, and loving you. Those kinds of friendships are not like the cherry on top of the Christian life. We need it. When we don't have it, we dwindle, we suffer. But with these kinds of friendships, we thrive. And listen, there's nothing about these kinds of friendships that require you to be in the same age and stage of life. That's really nice when we have good close friends that are going through the same age and stage of life as us, but the Bible is filled with, I would argue, the deepest of friendships we see have huge age gaps. David and Jonathan, probably at least 30 years together. Naomi and Ruth, certainly two different generations of women, close friends. Right here, Paul and Timothy, probably at least 30 years of difference together. There is nothing about deep gospel friendships that requires you be in the same age and stage. In fact, I would argue we are maybe missing something about friendship if we think we can only be close friends with those that are in the same age and stage as us. If that were the case, then Jesus couldn't really be your friend. He's at a way different age and life stage than you are. We need these, and when we have them, we thrive. You've probably noticed this really simple idea that everything with a friend is easier, right? Anytime you have to do something hard, if you have a friend by you, you're suddenly more brave, right? Just very simply think, if you had to walk through a dark alley to get to your car, would you rather do that by yourself or with a friend? Duh, right? With a friend, it's easier. Everything's easier with a friend. Suffering is easier. Holiness is easier. Rejoicing is easier. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's easier to have companionship and friendship. When we have these kinds of friendships, God knows we need them. It's why God provided Paul and Barnabas together. It's why when they separated that God brought other partners to both of those men because they needed friendships, gospel friendships. There's nobody in my life that I have experienced this more with than my wife. She is not just my wife, she's my best friend. I look at every one of these things and I think we have that together. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be married to experience that. I'm just saying that's my experience in marriage. My wife loves me. She's with me. She's for me. She cares for me. She'll speak a hard word to me. We'll minister together. I just had a recent moment where we're sitting ministering to someone and I look and I see her next to me and I just think this is so hard yet so fun that we get to do this together. And there's many others in my life that I feel similarly about. Do you have those kinds of friendships? Those kinds of deep friendships with other Christians where you're following Jesus together. You know that they're with you, for you, and loving you. If you don't have them, ask for them. Ask the Lord. Ask someone. Seek them out. Cultivate these kinds of friendships. At one point in our life, we were really good at this when we were kids. And we went on the playground and we ran up to the other 5-year-old, the other 6-year-old and said, we've never met before. Do you want to be my friend? And then in adulthood, we got really scared. These kinds of friendships are right in front of us. They are for the taking, and our souls are longing for them. And what's really heavy in Acts 15 and 16 is Paul and Barnabas have this. They have this friendship together, and then they lose it. They lose it. If gospel friendships are crucial, well, then losing gospel friendships is heartbreaking. And it's what happens right here to a certain extent. I don't think Paul and Barnabas go their separate ways in the sense that they hate each other and they're mad at each other. No, they just don't have the same friendship ever again that we know of. Losing gospel friendships is heartbreaking. we're told here that there's a sharp disagreement that arose between them. That is what that word means is there was a sudden surge of high emotions that led them both to make a decision. There was anger, frustration, confusion, miscommunication, probably a lot of fear that arose in both of them. High emotions driving them to the decision of, whoa, I don't know what's happening, but we have to separate. This is heartbreaking that these two cannot continue together for whatever reason. We're not told a lot. All we're told is there's a disagreement about who to take on the journey. Barnabas wants to take this guy named John Mark with them, and Paul says, no way. And his reason is that same guy deserted them earlier in this mission that they were on. We don't know why he left. We don't know if he had good reason. We don't know if he got scared. We know nothing other than he deserted them. And Paul doesn't want to take him. I gotta believe Paul's hurt and afraid. He's afraid about getting abandoned again, I would imagine. I don't think he's only just strategic about, well, the mission requires that we have committed people, and though he probably is, how would you feel? You'd probably feel hurt. That person left us high and dry when we needed them most. Yet Barnabas, he's that son of encouragement. He probably sees the reconciliation on the horizon and wants to love this guy and bring him in and give him another shot. We know that ultimately Mark kind of proves himself and proves to be faithful. But in this moment, the disagreement is so sharp that they separate. And it's devastating. It's heartbreaking. But this kind of thing would be a marker for Paul's life as he lived for Jesus. He was no stranger to losing friendships, no stranger to people abandoning him and deserting him. It happens. It happens to us. In fact, at the end of 2 Timothy, we get a picture of, it's like a microcosm of what Paul's life was like, gaining partners as he followed Jesus and losing friendships all along the way. And you can sense the heartbreak as you read some of it. It's in 2 Timothy chapter 4 if you want to look at it later. But there's a few reasons why we lose these kinds of friendships. One is just really natural. It's just circumstances. We lose friendships because of circumstances. People move. People go through life transition and the nature of our relationship changes, or people die and we lose relationship with them, or there's just circumstances that aren't right or wrong, they just happen and we lose the friendships, but the pain is no less painful. Paul would have tons of relationships like this. We read it in 2 Timothy chapter 4. He writes about friends. He says, Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus has gone to Dalmatia, Luke alone is with me, Tychicus I've sent to Ephesus. Circumstantial reasons, Paul finds himself without friends. He says eventually, Luke alone is with me. Sometimes we just lose these friendships for whatever reason, but it's still painful. Later in the book of Acts, we read about the farewell between Paul and all of the elders of the church in Ephesus, and it says that they would weep on each other's necks together, knowing this is the last time we see each other. Having these gospel friendships, but then losing them, even just to circumstances, is so painful. I remember I had this with one of my closest friends. One of those friends where we would literally sit for probably, I'm not exaggerating, we could sit for 2, 3, 4 hours talking theology, Bible, following Jesus, and then when it was time to go to bed, we'd be disappointed. Like just this rich friendship. We knew how to laugh together. We knew how to confess sin to each other. And then he moved. And God was in the move. It was for the Lord. The Lord was calling him. I supported it. I in fact told him, you should do this. But there's an ache in me. Our friendship has never been the same. I still love him dearly. He still loves me. We are no less friends, but the experience of our friendship has never been the same. And I ache for it. Sometimes that happens as we follow Jesus. Another reason we lose these kinds of friendships is what happens right here, disagreements. Sometimes there's sharp disagreements and neither person is obviously right or wrong. This happens in churches all the time. There's disagreements that arise and we need to separate. Neither of us really want to, but we sense that it's necessary. That's what happens here with Paul and Barnabas. But then there's a third reason why we lose these relationships, and this tends to be the most painful, is that we are deserted or rejected. This would be what happened to Paul again and again and again and again. It's what he felt here from Mark. That guy deserted me. He left us when we needed him. And Paul would experience this throughout his life. Again, you find it in 2 Timothy chapter 4 as he's writing. He talks about a man named Demas, who in previous letters he calls a co-worker, a trusted brother who he stood side by side with, having a gospel friendship. He writes about this man and says, Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me. That brother, co-worker I stood side by side with, suffering with, he fell in love with the world and he deserted me. Paul would say earlier in 2 Timothy, all in Asia have deserted me. That's a continent. All people in Asia, like all of the brothers and sisters, they've left me. No one's come to my support. He would write later here about Alexander. He says, Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. The Lord will repay him according to his deeds. Beware of him yourself, for he strongly opposed our message. He didn't just oppose the message of God eventually, but he did great harm to Paul personally. Or at the end of this letter in verse 16, he says, at my first defense, when he stood trial, no one came to stand by me, but all deserted me. Some of you know what that feels like. To have those friendships and then lose them because that person rejected you, rejected the Lord, abandoned you, and deserted you. I had a friendship like this once. We became fast friends for about 1.5 to 2 years. My college roommate, he was my best friend at the time. Trusted him. We laughed hard together. We knew how to goof off. We played sports together. We cried together. We confessed sin to each other. We talked about Jesus together. We pastored together. And eventually it came out that he was living a double life. He was lying to everybody about seemingly most everything. And I never really got to talk to him ever again. I pursued relationship with him. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? Where are you going? Why are you moving? Why are you? Wouldn't talk to me. Lost relationship with somebody that I considered a gospel friend. Saddens me to this day. Because for as wonderful and amazing as these friendships are when we have them, it feels like when we lose them, the pain is twice as bad as the joys were. Paul feels this all throughout his life. If you've lost this kind of relationship, you know how gut-wrenching it is. But there's a reason why these relationships are so life-giving when we have them and so devastating when we lose them. It's because we were wired for this kind of friendship. But we were wired to have this kind of friendship ultimately with Jesus. Jesus is the only one who can be that kind of friend that we need. Friendship with Jesus lasts. Jesus is many things to us as Christians. He is our Lord, He's our King, He's our Savior, He's God, He's eternal, but He's also our friend. really and truly, he's our friend. And the Christian life is not just living life for Jesus. The Christian life is living life with Jesus. If you're here today and you ache because you don't have those friendships for whatever reason, that ache is there to show you Jesus will be that friend you need. Those of you that have those kinds of relationships and yet you know that there's aspects of them where you feel unsatisfied, you feel like, man, I wish there's something here I wish we had. It's meant to draw you ultimately to Christ, to say that he is the friend that sticks closer than a brother. He is the friend who is with you, for you, and loving you at all times. Jesus alone is the friend who is with you. What does he promise? I will always be with you. I will never forsake you. Meaning there is never a day, Christian, where you will do anything that will cause Jesus to take a step away from you. In fact, even in your lowest, most egregious, sinful moments, he steps closer to you. He loves you. He is with you always. It wasn't enough for Jesus to just be physically present on earth. It wasn't close enough for God. He wanted to send his very presence to dwell in you. That's how close he wants to be to you. He's with you. He has your back. He is by your side. He is paving the road in front of you, meaning everywhere you look, he's there. And Paul, in the midst of his heartbreak in 2 Timothy, in his very last letter, when he says, all deserted me, no one came to stand by me. The very next verse he says, but the Lord stood by me and strengthened me. Meaning when Paul felt his most lonely, the loneliest he's ever felt, he sensed the presence of Jesus right next to him with his arm around him saying, Paul, I'm with you. That's the friend you want. That's the friend I want. Jesus knows what it's like to experience betrayal and abandonment. Do you remember the life of Jesus? His best friends who were with him through thick and thin, Peter promising him, Jesus, I will never deny you. Anybody tries to kill you, they're going through me first. And yet when Jesus is arrested, he's arrested because one of his close friends betrays him. And then the scriptures tell us that they left him when it came to be crucified. Jesus was up on that cross alone, suffering by himself. He did that on purpose to save you. He wanted to be friends with you so much, he said, I'll be deserted, I'll be abandoned and rejected and betrayed because I want to be with you. You can trust him. He's with you. He's for you. Christian, as you follow him, he empowers your ministry. He gives you everything you need to do it. He doesn't just cheer you on and say, you got this. He says, I got this through you. Let's go together. He empowers you. You can trust him when he says a hard thing to you. Because he's forgiven all of your sins. He promises you he has no condemnation for your sins. He never fills you with shame. So you can trust him when he says a hard thing, because guess what? Jesus doesn't support you in everything you do. There are things that you want to do that Jesus says, I don't support that. Don't do that. That's bad. But guess what? When he says those things, you can trust him because he's for you. He died for you. He loves you. He's with you. He's for you. He loves you. And in fact, he tells you how much he loves you over and over and over again. In fact, if you ever wonder how much he loves you, you can ask him, and he doesn't get tired of telling you. If you're like the insecure partner in the relationship that just has to say, why do you even love me? Jesus doesn't get annoyed. He says, I'd love to tell you why I love you. It's because I love you. That's why I love you. Like, that doesn't sound right. Exactly. He loves you because he loves you. It's who he is. He died for you. He lives for you. He rejoices and weeps with you. He feels your highs higher than you do and suffers your burdens deeper than you do. He's like, you know, when a kid goes up to a parent and says, I love you, and the parent says, I love you more. And the kid's like, well, no, you don't. I love you more. And the parent just has this moment internally when they're like, you're so cute. You'll never know how much I love you. And that's a true reality in that relationship between a parent and a child. The child will never, ever grasp how much a good parent really loves them. Even when that child becomes a parent, they'll understand, but they still won't feel the depths of the love that their parent has for them. It's just impossible. We can't grasp it. That's what it's like with Jesus. You will never grasp how much he loves you. In fact, if we let Jesus tell us the affection that he feels for us, we wouldn't believe him. We'd get so uncomfortable. We'd think, no, this is starting to sound wrong. You couldn't possibly feel that way about me. We'll never understand. His love is unfathomable. It's unmeasurable. But that's the kind of friend that he is. He's the friend that our hearts were created to be tied to. And a good gospel friend points you to Jesus. A good gospel friend says, you need him more than you need me. When Paul comes to the end of his life, he looks back on moments like this in Acts chapter 15 and Acts chapter 16, recognizing he's had moments where he's had faithful friends, and he's had moments where he's had friends desert him. But he realizes at the very end, Jesus, you have always been there. You've never left me. You've always been faithful. And so, church, there's an invitation for us in this. Yes, we need human friendships, deep human gospel relationships, but you need the friendship of God more than anything else. So let me ask you this. When you are angry, who do you run to? First, when you are stressed and worried, who do you run to pour out your stress? When you are confused, who do you run to? When you need wisdom and direction, who do you run to? Jesus is the friend you need. More than your spouse, more than a potential future spouse, more than a friend, more than a sibling, more than a parent. You need the friendship of Jesus. Is Jesus your friend? If you've come to put your faith and your trust in Jesus, that's the only way to access the friendship of Jesus. But if he's your friend, here's my invitation to you this morning as we close. Spill your guts to him. Spill your guts to him. Author Jared Wilson talks about friendship with Jesus like this. Prayer is how we interact with our friend Jesus. This friend never checks his watch when you're talking to him. You might, but he won't. He's not checking your prayer off his religious listen to people chore chart. He's not tapping his foot looking over your shoulder for someone more interesting, or staring at his phone while you're vomiting up your latest experience in the exact same struggle you've had for the last 10 years. He is, in fact, more eager to listen than you are to speak. We go on and on at times about God giving us the silent treatment, saying, I just feel like God is so distant lately. In reality, it's always the opposite. We are constantly moving away, and He's constantly following. And He's a much better listener. He picks up everything. You don't have to repeat yourself, but it's totally okay if you do. He's listening. So open up. Let's pray together.